Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite things in the world, and that is some fall time spinnerbait fishing. We're going to talk about a couple tricks that I've learned over the years that have helped me catch a couple more fish on a spinnerbait, especially in the fall. So stay tuned and let's get right into it. All right, so before we get out here and start throwing this spinnerbait around, let's talk about one of the tricks while we're sitting right here, and also the rod and reel setup that we're going to be using today if you're interested in using any of the stuff that we'll be using in today's video. All the links will always be in the bottom of the description for my videos, so if you're ever looking for something specific, it will be linked down there if you need to check that out. We'll start with the spinnerbait here. I had a 6 Sense spinnerbait on earlier today, and that's what I caught one of my fish on, and then I switched it up. I actually lost that spinnerbait. I only had a handful of them because I got them when they were like a pre-release, and they were pretty much sold out at the time, and I'm running low on spinnerbaits, so we're going to be making some here in a video in the near future, hopefully. But this is a Z-Man sling blades. That's what we have tied on right now. Both of them were a 1/2 ounce. I've been using a 1/2 ounce today. We're fishing in like 5 to 10 foot of water, and what I'm doing is I'm using a larger blade on the back here. So you could do this with Colorados and stuff. It would do the same thing. But I like the willow leaf blades this time of year because of how well they imitate shad, and like they're basically only chasing shad this time of year if you have shad in your lake. So I went to bigger willow leaf blades here. Like you can get smaller willow leaf spinners so that they get down in the water a little bit more, but these bigger ones will cause more lift and thump and will actually lift your bait up in the water column at slower speeds. So a 3/8 ounce might have these smaller willow leaves, and it'll actually get deeper than if you set your spinnerbait up like we're about to show you right here. So bigger bait, bigger blades, keeps it up in the water column, and we'll show you why that's important and how to fish it on the water. I was using like a blue and chartreuse and white one earlier. I don't think color really matters. As long as you have white and chartreuse, you're good to go. Those are the two colors that I use the most. Today I've been using something with a little bit of pop in the color than just a straight white one because it's a little overcast. Probably doesn't make much of a difference. Usually dirtier the water, I'll go with the chartreuse. Cleaner the water, I'll go with the straight white. But that's the setup right there on the colors. And then I have a 6 Sense Divine 3.2 swim bait. That's what I've been fishing as my trailer on here. The trailer is going to be one of the most important things we talk about in today's video. It's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to keep you from getting snagged as much because it's going to cause more bulk on the bait. So if you had 2 hooks on here, like your regular hook and your trailer hook, you have a free-flowing hook back here that can just hang up on any stick in the water, where this you have a singular hook. If that hits a piece of wood, it usually will ride over it and keep going and not get hung in that piece of wood. When you run just the single hook, you get less snags. However, what's going to happen is the fish might start hitting the blades if you have just the skirt down here, because once that compresses, the blade actually might be bigger than the bait itself. So that's why we run the trailer on here, to give this thing some mass compared to the rest of the bait, so those fish have a target to hit, and you won't even need the trailer hook because they'll actually hit this instead of the blades, and they'll get hooked more often than not doing that. You're still going to lose a couple fish. They're obviously going to end up eating the blades at some point. They think they're shad, but using that trailer will help a lot in your hookup ratio. So that's the way I like to set my spinnerbait up. And then when it comes to rod, reel, line setup, usually I'm fishing a 7'3" or 7-foot medium heavy with 14 to 17 pound test fluorocarbon. Those rods were taken. I have a lot of stuff all like jumbled up from when I've been fishing and jumping into other people's boats over the course of not having mine. This is actually my chatterbait rod, which works perfect as well. This is the Cashin Icon chatterbait rod. Excellent rod for fishing spinnerbaits as well. It has a softer rod tip, so you can make really accurate casts. It's only 7'1" in length, so you can make those accurate casts. But it has the backbone to actually set the hook on these single hook baits and get those fish in the boat. So this chatterbait rod has been excellent. Again, Corrado MGL is like the one reel that I always fish on all my rods. I got a bunch of them across all the rods, and then I have my straight 17 pound test fluorocarbon on here because that's usually what I fish on my chatterbaits. So I had it ready to go for my spinnerbait, and I'm fishing it around some heavier cover today. So I wanted the 17 pound test to be able to handle getting fish out of cover and around all those sticks, avoiding abrasion and break-offs and stuff like that. So that's the setup. Let's head out on the water. We'll show you the rest of the things you need to do to try and catch some more fish on your spinnerbait, like how to fish it and retrieves and all that kind of stuff as well. So let's get to it and let's catch a couple fish. All right, so now that we talked about the spinnerbait setup, the rod and reel we're using, how we're rigging up this trailer to make sure we're catching some fish here, let's go ahead and actually fish this around and try and catch a couple fish. So we have a perfect fall day for spinnerbait fishing. I'm on one of my favorite lakes to throw a spinnerbait. It's polluted with shad. Like, this lake has so many shad in it, it is actually ridiculous. So that's one of the main food sources in the fall here for some of these big largemouth that live in this lake. So we're gonna try and target some really big fish today. We might only catch 1 or 2, but if we catch them, they're gonna be very, very large fish, hopefully. We're gonna do that with this spinnerbait. So what we did was we picked out a 6th Sense spinnerbait. This is the Divine spinnerbait. They're haven't played around with them too much yet. This is my first little experience with them. We have a whole box if we want to try some other stuff today. The reason I picked this one is because it has a very large silver blade on it. And I went with a much larger blade than I usually do for 2 reasons. One, I'm fishing a 1/2 ounce, so I can fish a little bit bigger bait and try and get some bigger bites. But also that blade's gonna have more lift. So I'm basically floating this in these areas. Like, these fish are gonna be right up in these logs today if they're gonna be up there, and they bite it pretty quick. So I'm basically floating this right over these logs, and you can see I'm reeling this bait super, super slow. And all I'm kind of doing is just hovering this thing in place. This isn't one of the better banks on the lake, but we're gonna try it anyway and see if we can get a couple bites. But when we move on to some of the better banks throughout this lake, they're very steep. So I'm in 12 foot of water right here. Some of the other places will be in 20 in the same depth or same distance off the bank. So your strike zone's very, very short up there, and you just have to float that thing in place. So I use bigger blades to keep my spinnerbait up in the water column. So that's basically what we're gonna do. We're gonna kind of slow roll this thing around. We'll show you how we're fishing this as we approach different logs and stuff like that. But you can see I'm basically roll casting it in tight to cover where I think there might be a fish. Sometimes it'll hang over a log. I just kind of shake it off. That's why I don't use a trailer hook and we use the trailer instead. You get a better hookup ratio like we talked about with the trailer, but also you snag less. So where you have 2 hooks with a trailer hook that free flows around on the back. This one, you have 1 hook, it's in place, and it's kind of protected by a wire. So it gives you a little bit more opportunity to not get hung up, and especially in and around all this cover. So we're gonna fish real slow down through here and be very thorough and see if we can get us a couple bites. There's one, that was sweet. Oh. He literally ate it off the bank, that was awesome. You can see he was able to actually target that bait. Literally, as soon as it hit the water, he didn't even eat the blades. He went right for that meat on that bait there, which is exactly what we want them to do with that trailer. That wasn't an example of floating it in the strike zone, but we'll work on that one next. So we're gonna get him weighed up, let him go, get back to fishing. All right, so we went probably 30 minutes without a bite there. I was actually starting to get worried because usually it's a little bit faster than that during the fall out here. But we started to get onto some of the good bank here and actually got a bite. We're gonna pass back through there because we drifted a little bit. But that was literally so sweet. I rolled that right up on the bank there and it touched water and he rushed up on there and ate it. I literally jig hook set on him because my reel wasn't even engaged yet. I mean, that was awesome. So we're gonna get back to fishing here. See if we can get another one. See if we can get one actually reeling the bait rather than pitching and flipping. We are going to do a jig video today, so hopefully that's a sign that the jig video will go well later, but for right now we got to do a spinnerbait video, and it doesn't help when they're eating it like a jig, but we'll keep on going and see what happens. All right, so we just lost our spinnerbait there on a log. I don't have any more of the 6th Sense ones because they were sold out pretty much when I bought those, so they really didn't have much of a selection. Honestly, I'd rather use either a chartreuse and white, like today is a nice cloudy day, overcast conditions, chartreuse and white's a good option, or just like a plain white is another good option. And I don't have any in the 6th Sense ones, so we're gonna try and use, this is a Z-Man sling blades, and then we're gonna use the same trailer we were just using on that one. Honestly, I'm running pretty low on spinnerbaits, so I know I mentioned that I would potentially be doing a spinnerbait making video here soon, so that might be coming sooner than you think because I am dangerously low on spinnerbaits, and it's that time of year to be throwing spinnerbaits. So before we run into this big tree here, we're gonna scoot back out, and this is a Divine 3.2 swim bait, so you can see right there, matches up pretty perfectly on there. We'll show you how to rig this guy up so that you can get it nice and straight on here. The other ones have a screw lock keeper, and if you've seen any of my videos talking about the Pulsefish lures jig head with the screw lock, you know how to rig one of those up already. But if you don't, this one just has like a little spike keeper on it. So I'll basically just kind of line up where that's gonna go and see where it's gonna come out in the bait to be straight on there. And these Divine swim baits have a center line. So I'll just follow that center line. This is a pretty translucent white colored one, so I'll follow that all the way down around the bend, and then I'll stick it up on that spike keeper there, and it'll be nice and centered because of that center line on the bait. And it's important to have your swim bait centered no matter what swim bait you're fishing. It has it swim better, but it's ultra important on a spinnerbait to have your trailer center because it'll actually keep your bait upright. If you have it off kilter, it'll want to roll a little bit, and that might have been why that one was getting hung up just a little bit too much. It might honestly have just been not centered upright, and whenever it would hit a log, instead of coming over the log and going down, it would roll and the hook would get caught in the log. We'll never know because she's gone. So we're gonna give this one a shot and see if they maybe like a chartreuse in white. Has the same blade combo. Double willow is what I like this time of year just because it mimics shad the best. And then I have a large silver and a small gold. But that's just how they come. I didn't get to make this or pick that for any particular reason. That's just what comes out of the package and how I get them. So that's how I'm fishing them today until we show you how to make some spinnerbaits. But for now, we're gonna get back to fishing here and try and float this thing around some of these steeper banks and some of these nice pieces of wood that these fish might be living on. Basically trying to eat some shad. I think this way is gonna be the way to go because we got the wind blowing straight down the lake here. It might clean some of these leaves out a little bit. These leaves are being quite a pain to fish a spinnerbait through. I probably should have fished the jig through there and done my jig video, but it is what it is. The spinnerbait might be a little bit better up through here with the wind blowing on some of these logs and that front pushing through. It's gonna drop down into like the 30s this weekend. So could be good with these fish getting ready to feed one last time. It's actually like 65 degrees out right now. So, and of course we make a bad cast and get hung in a tree. So we'll get this back and get back to fishing. Something like this log right here is the perfect place to throw this spinnerbait because they can be up shallow or way out on the deep end. So I'll throw it way up on the bank there and I'll just parallel this thing the entire way down this log. And you can see how slow I'm reeling. I'm literally just floating it down there the entire way. And we didn't get one on that, but there's another log right here and I'll do the exact same thing. I'll throw it up there right at the base and then I'll just slowly work it the whole way out or get rolled over in there and get hung up. Frustrating, but sometimes that happens. If it rolls over and gets hung up, you either lose your spinnerbait depending on where you're at, or sometimes you can go in here and get it. But there's a couple other logs that are just like this, and we'll show you again what we're doing once we get over to those ones there on how I'm like trying to pull this down these logs. We're out. All right, so what I wanted to do there was throw it down the middle of that log or side of it and just slowly float that thing down the log. That did not work out. Like I said, sometimes when you're fishing this, your wire could be bent a little bit or your spinnerbait, your like skirt could be more to one side, and when you hit that log, what will happen is your bait will hit that and just roll into it this way. A lot of times the blades will block your hook, but sometimes if you hit it just right, it'll roll over and catch it. That's exactly what happened right there. That's part of spinnerbait fishing. If you're not getting hung up in these pieces of wood with your spinnerbait, you're not getting it close enough. Sometimes that can make all the difference. Sometimes they're willing to come way out and chase it. Doesn't seem like that's the case today, so we're gonna have to try really hard to put our spinnerbait as close to the pieces of cover as we can. and keep it in that strike zone to get one to commit. I think this stretch is going to be the one. I'm feeling confident up here. This little stretch right here, there's a couple lay down pieces of wood. I can see one right here that sticks all the way out into the water. There's another one beyond it. So we'll just pick these apart really nice. There's another one right here. So we'll show you exactly what I'm going to do, where I'm going to roll cast this thing up to the base of that log, let that thing sit in there and kind of flutter its way out. So let's troll up here and make that happen. All right, so we're approaching this log right here, and it'll take a few casts to get all the angles right. So I'll tend to throw to the tip of the log first, just so I don't get hung up. A lot of times if you go right for the gusto and go way back in there and you get hung up, then you're gonna end up losing your spinnerbait or ruining that piece of cover or anything. So I've thrown it to the edge, so now we're gonna throw it back in there. Sometimes you'll get hung on those little overhanging branches. I just kind of reel it out and let it land where it lands, and then I'll make other casts and try and cover all the area. So I've hit the edge on the right side here. So now I'm gonna take this thing and I'm gonna throw it right, that might be on the right side still. So I'll pull it down that side again. I'll kind of maneuver my line to get my spinnerbait to go where I want it to. So that didn't go where I wanted it to, so now we're gonna throw it right down the middle there and bring it the whole way back. And I'll kind of just flutter it over these logs. So I got it over that log. And now once I get it into the deeper end of the log, I'll slow down even more. As long as that blade is spinning, you can feel that thump, 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 thump. That's all you need. Everything else, you don't need to reel it any faster than that. So now we'll bring it down this left side here, which looks like a nice little corner that they could sit in with the wind blowing in on it. And I'm shocked that I'm not getting bit on some of these pieces of cover. I really do not know what is happening. This is like primetime spinnerbait season. We have 61-degree water temperature. They should be jumping all over this, but maybe not. There's like I said, there's a front coming tomorrow, so they might be done for the day, or year in this instance, because this is going to be the last. This is a largemouth lake, so smallmouth will still be biting. We'll be doing some smallmouth stuff here soon. But our largemouth, they tend to shut down once that water starts to get a little colder. But usually that's like 50 degrees, in mid-50s is when it really shuts down. It should be on fire right now in the 60-degree water temperature range. Don't know what's going on. There we go. That took forever, and he's not even big. But we are quickly running out of daylight, and we have another video we got to get done to get back on track here now that we have the boat back. So hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. As you can see, even that little guy right there, he was able to get that bait in his mouth and targeted the right piece of the bait because of that trailer, fishing it slow through the strike zone. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want to see another video talking about the spinnerbait and how to fish this technique, go ahead and check that one out right there. I'm going to be doing a ton of content coming up. We got the boat back. We're ready to get back to fishing. There's going to be smallmouth stuff coming. There's going to be Florida videos coming. We're going to be going down there very quickly. So a lot of stuff's coming up. If there's anything you want to see, drop a comment down below and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of it coming up. Thanks for watching. See you, little dude.